In this lesson, we're going to continue our introduction to the for loop by taking a look at how to use a for loop to process the characters in a string. A string is a sequence of data just like a list or any other data structure is, and we can use the for loop to perform computations on strings. So we'll look at some simple examples in this lesson. Let's start our program. We're going to call it forintro2.py. So the first thing we're going to do is create a simple word, hello, and then we're going to write a for loop to access each letter of that word. So we're going to say for letter in word, print letter. And what that will do is that will print HELLO on a separate line. So let's save the program and exit, and then run it. And there's HELLO, each on its own line. So now let's look at a more complex example. Let's go back to the program. We'll comment out these first couple of lines. We don't need them anymore. And what I want to do now is I want to count the number of vowels in a longer string, in a sentence. So our sentence is, now is the time for all good people to come to the aid. Let's count the vowels real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So there are 19 vowels. To keep track of the vowels, we need a variable to store each occurrence. So we'll use count and we'll assign it 0. So here we'll have our for loop, for letter in sentence, and then we have an if statement. If letter equals A, or letter equals E, or letter equals I, or letter equals O. Now here we have a little bit of a dilemma. We're running out of room on the screen to display this line. I don't want to carry it off to the end of the line, but if I drop down to a new line, Python's going to give me an error saying I didn't really finish off this line. So what I can do is I can continue the current line on the next line by typing a backslash like that. And that backslash tells the Python interpreter to continue as if it was on the same line. So I'm going to come down here and indent a little bit more and say, or letter equals U, followed by a colon, because that's the end of my if. And then the body of the if is simply going to say count is equal to count plus 1. In other words, if a letter is A, or a letter is E, or a letter is I, or a letter is O, or a letter is U, then the letter is a vowel, and we want to add 1 to the count. So then when we're finished, we can say print the number of vowels is plus string count, like so. So let's exit and save, clear the screen, and then run our program. And it says the number of vowels is 19. So it worked. So again, we can use a for loop anytime we want to process the elements of a sequence, especially when we want to process all of the elements in a sequence. Now, that's not to say that we can't use break or even continue to modify the flow of control, but in general, for loops are used when we want to access all of the elements in a sequence. And in fact, anytime we're working with sequences in general, we'll use for loops over while loops. While loops I like to call open-ended loops, and I like to call for loops close-ended, because with a for loop we can usually see, just by scanning the program, the range of the loop. How many elements is it going to access? Or what's the possibility? Well, we know that in this particular program, it's not going to access more than the last letter in the sentence, and we can see that easy enough. Whereas if we're processing a file with a while loop, we may not know because we can't see the end of the file. Or if we're doing some other open-ended problem, again, we can't really look and know when the loop's going to end. But with a for loop, we can usually tell what the range of computation is going to be. So that wraps up this second introduction to the for loop, and now we're going to move into some more specific examples of using for loops with sequences by examining in more detail how to use the for loop with a list.